Ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. This is 9848's Gear Up New Jersey virtual series, and we're starting session number 4 today, which is going to be a coaches Q&A. We're really focused on preparing for the league tournament and then what's beyond that, right? So like, where are we going to go from here? For our overview of what we're planning to do today, we're going to do a quick introduction of my coaching team that I am so thrilled to have work with me at Clearview. We'll cover some quick goals for the session, and then we're going to have an open forum where my coaching team is going to answer questions facilitated by 2 of our 9848 students here. And with that, we welcome participation from any other participants who are on the call. So you are all welcome, and we're excited to see you. For our team, before we each introduce ourselves, I'm going to ask everyone who's on our team to go over kind of their own introduction. I just say I am blessed to have a support system so that it's not just one person working to support all of our students, but I've got a really strong team at this point. And hopefully that's something that most of us can build towards. My name is Ruth Barrero. I'm the head coach at Clearview, which is in Gloucester County, Mullica Hill, pretty far south in New Jersey. I live in Vineland, which is even further south with my husband and my kids. I am a teacher. I started teaching in 2013, but that's not my background. I went to school for architecture, and it's actually sort of interesting, I think, that my parents were, my father was a teacher, all my sisters are teachers. And the one thing that I said I would never do when I was growing up was be a teacher. But when I was working in an architectural firm, I ended up participating in a program called ACE, which is, it stands for Architecture Construction Engineering. And it is it's a mentoring program for high school students. And turns out I actually really liked working with kids. So I decided to become a teacher. We started FTC robotics at my school in 2015. I mean, it really started because they said, hey, who's willing to do this? I had no background in this at all, nothing in robotics, nothing computer science. I mean, I had done CAD, like the 3D modeling from architecture, but that was really about it. But I said, hey, I'm happy to go along for the ride. Over the past, this is our 11th year now, we've built a sustainable model for multiple teams. In the past, I volunteered as a judge and a ref with First Tech Challenge New Jersey, and I'm really passionate about helping other teams get started and them finding success along the way. All right, with that, I'm going to turn things over to my co-coach.
Hi, I'm Tara Pridey, new to robotics. I joined in the middle of the year last year, right around the time of states, and loving it. It's a lot of fun. My kids went to Clearview, and I teach at Clearview, but like Ruth, I have no background in computer science, coding, CAD, none of that. I'm really enjoying working with robotics. The kids are great. I enjoy both aspects, the portfolio and the presentations, and then also the technical, the building and the coding and everything. I went to Temple University and got a teaching degree.
All right, thanks, Tara.
Yep.
Over to Robin.
Thanks. Good evening. I'm Robin Dole, and I'm a volunteer parent coach. I live in Mansion Township. My children went to Clearview. I have twin boys that just graduated last year, and one was full on robotics and all 4 years and on to Purdue for engineering. My other son dabbled in it a little bit, left, came back. He actually sort of created his own position as the media specialist 1 year, and he's gone on to go to school for filmmaking. My background is healthcare. I'm a physical therapist by training, but I've spent the last 30 years in higher education as faculty member and then academic administrator. And currently I'm the Dean of the College of Health and Human Services at Widener University. I've been involved as a parent volunteer since my kids started high school in 2021. And I actually did that because that year they weren't allowing any spectators at any events. And the way that I could go see what this robotics thing was all about and cheer on my children was to volunteer. And then you get bitten, right? You get bitten by the bug, and I am full all in. And so my involvement has increased every year since, to becoming one of the more committed parent volunteer coaches last season. And then even with kids gone, I'm still back for season 2 in this role. Over that time, I also got more involved in FTC New Jersey as a volunteer judge, a volunteer ref, and then this year doing Dean's List interviewer. Part of the things that I feel like I can contribute to the teams at Clearview is help in judging and portfolio development, overall planning for outreach, goal setting, thinking about social media presence, and something that I've been trying to help, especially our seniors do, is how to translate this robotic experience to make it shine on their college applications.
Thanks so much, Robin. And you just unlocked a memory. I forgot about I think I've just blocked out COVID. So maybe that's why I didn't remember that, but I do. It was like no parents unless you're volunteering. All right, on to Larry.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I'm Larry Wang. I live in Mullica Hill with my wife and have 2 children. One is out and living in New York City, and the other one, who really introduced me to robotics, is now away at college going for his engineering degree. On a personal level, I have both a bachelor's and a master's in mechanical engineering, as well as an MBA, and I'm a licensed professional engineer. And I'm also retired, so getting involved with robotics was a great opportunity for me. I was able to take an early retirement as an aerospace executive. And during my career, I worked a lot of hours and traveled extensively. And one of the things I had made a personal commitment was to kind of find a way to give back after I had retired, and robotics really fit in perfectly. Got involved through my son, but now he is out and I'm still continuing. So it's been since 2022. And I've also enjoyed getting an opportunity to meet some of the other teams and work with some of the other volunteers through my activities as an FTC, both referee and robot inspector. And that's been a learning experience and very rewarding. In terms of mentoring I provide, I try to help with robot design, build, reliability, game strategy, and then project management, and also helping the teams work together on technical challenges. And I've really enjoyed my opportunity to work with the students, and I think they teach me as much as I help them. So I really enjoying the opportunity.
All right, thanks so much, Larry. It's another one. Both Robin and Larry really appreciate your commitment past your children's involvement. And on to Chris.
His mic is muted.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chris, is your mic muted?
Sorry, bad habit. Yeah, my name is Chris Ravel. I can't believe this is my 5th year already, I guess, in this. My son is started this in 7th grade. He's now in 11th grade, and I really enjoy being a part of this. I think I'm living a little bit vicariously through him, because I really wish I had something like this when I was a kid in school. So yeah, I came from Rutgers University, got my bachelor's in arts with an emphasis in computer animation. I currently work in the advertising industry, doing mostly architectural and pharmaceutical, animation, visualization, advertising. Started about 20 plus years ago. So I have a lot of computer experience, but more on the visual side of things. But yeah, I really enjoy being a part of this and helping the kids out. And this year, I kind of started more as a parent chaperone, but this year I enjoyed visiting the club at the school more and working with the kids, after class. And I'm hoping next year I can be a bit more involved with them from the get-go, especially with the marketing portfolio type and logistics and management aspects of it, since I do quite a bit of that for my job currently.
Thanks, Chris. And yeah, we're definitely happy that we've been able to push you over, or pull you over, I guess, from with a little bit more involvement when you were already pretty involved. So thank you for that.
You bet.
I'd like to give an opportunity. I know we have at least 2 other coaches on here. If y'all wouldn't mind, just introducing, your name and, either your school or your community organization, your team name and number, and just what you're hoping to get out of this session. Shari, could we start with you?
Sure. My name is Sherry Murray, and I'm the science teacher and coding for 5th grade block coding teacher at C3 School in Elmer, New Jersey. I have been and my team number is 21480. The team name is C3 Locomotors. I work at the Creativity Collaboratory Charter School. It's an arts integrated school, middle school here in Elmer, New Jersey. I've been coaching for a while now. I started out taking over the reins from another coach at the Yale School, which was a special needs high school in Cherry Hill. And I took over the team called the Aliens. And then when I left that school, unfortunately, COVID hit and the team kind of fell apart and they don't have it anymore. But I started up the team here. They're the only one to bring FTC. I tried Lego League, was dissatisfied. Besides it being COVID, it just is not a well-run organization for New Jersey the way that Pat and Vince run it. So after experiencing that, I just had to go back to FTC. So I started a middle school team here. And we only have 5th through 8th grade, although I encourage kids, if they don't have a high school that has a robotics, that they can continue with our team. So I'm hoping that we wind up getting some older kids to stay with it. But I've learned as I've gone along. I have a biology degree and a master's degree in education. So I had really no experience, just my love of toy robots as a kid. So I'm learning coding. I don't really have a basics in any of it, but I'm sort of learning on the ropes. And I'm really proud of myself for the stuff that I have learned as I've gone along. I would love to learn CADing more to bring it to my students. I'd love to learn more about Java, more than what I've already been able to pick up. But I bring my husband, if you might see in the background. My husband is a power plant operator. He was in the Navy, and he has been my biggest go-to for mechanical engineering type of concepts to help bring it in for these kids. And whether he likes it or not, I pulled him into it, and he's involved. He's invested. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shari. And I believe we also have Kevin. Would you also mind introducing yourself, please? All right, Kevin, if you get to a point where you're able to, if you want to jump in, that would be awesome. I just want to do a quick overview of what we're kind of planning for this session, what our goals are going to be. And really, it's to support all the teams that are here. We want to be able to answer questions from questions that both rookie and veteran teams might be wondering about, as well as share some of our tips and tricks that Clearview has come up with that help our program be sustainable. We'd also really like to exchange ideas. So, any other coaches are welcome to participate as our students are asking some of the questions. So we get a wide range of perspectives from a middle school team to maybe Kevin's brand new team that just got their Go Build a Starter Bot kit, I think yesterday or the day before. So with that, we're going to move into the bulk of our session, which is our open forum. Alex and Mia, would you two mind just really quickly introducing yourselves?
Yes, hello. I'm Alex, and I'm from Team 948, and this is my 3rd year on the team.
All right, and Mia? All right, we'll just keep going for the moment, Mia. I'm sure you'll hop back in a second. So we've got 7 topics here that we're going to kind of talk about, and Alex and Mia are going to ask us some questions kind of open to the group for all of those. So Alex, whenever you are ready.
So one of the questions is for a rookie team that is their first time going into the league tournament, what is of some of the things that you can tell them to keep in mind or be wary of?
All right, so I'll start with this as the rest of you are thinking a little bit. But I guess so if we're talking for a new team going into the league tournament, I think that it might be helpful to sort of just know like the outline of the day and the things you need to be prepared for. So I'm going to kind of give like a general overview of what the day is like. And then as anybody else wants to add to it, feel free to jump in. But so for the league tournament, I generally, in my personal opinion, I try to get our teams there at 8 a.m., even if we technically start at 8:30. I always like us to have that extra little bit of time. At any competition, the first thing your team is going to do is set up their pit area so that it's clean and organized and ready to go, but also sort of aesthetically pleasing, right? So it's not like a mess all over the table. And then their first job is really to get through inspection. So making sure that even if you're having a challenge with your robot, you need to make sure you get your robot to inspection. And I will say it is better to fail inspection than to delay going to inspection. At a league tournament, there are 2 extra sort of features that are on top of the regular qualification matches. So in the morning, before the match list is released and all of that, your team is going to go through a presentation in front of a panel of judges. So they'll make sure that they are at their judging appointment early, ready to go, with cell phones silenced or not on them, hoodies off, they're professional and ready to go. They're going to go in and do their presentation. Once they're through that, the next thing is going to be their drivers meeting. So making sure they send their drivers to hear everything that the head ref wants to go over. Then there's going to be your opening ceremony. And one thing I want to note here, this is a little pet peeve of mine. It's really important, unless there's some major crisis with your robot, to send your team out to make sure they're there for that opening ceremony. I think it's important to recognize the volunteers and Pat and Vince and respect their time. After the opening ceremony, matches are going to start. Your team will get 5 matches throughout the day. Those are your qualification matches where they are randomly assigned alliance partners throughout the day. During that time, and again, I'm giving a brief overview of lots of things, you're going to want to have your students scouting, which is another topic we'll talk about, but that needs to be happening during those qualification matches. After qualification matches end, and this is a very short window, teams will be asked to send 1 representative to sort of usually they'll pick a wall in the gymnasium or wherever it's held to be the representative for your team for alliance selection. They'll pull up whatever teams are going to become alliance captains. And then they will make their selection for elimination matches, which are when instead of randomly being assigned, teams are able to select the team they'd like to work with. And then that's a double elimination bracket until there's a winning alliance. And after that's done, and sometimes sprinkled throughout, they'll start announcing the winners of the awards, which will kind of go throughout the day, throughout the end of the day. And then you kind of pack it all up and you go home. But it's a very long, intense day, but hopefully really rewarding for all the teams.
One of the things I'd add in there, if you don't mind, Ruth, just sharing, I've been doing this robot inspection for quite a few years. And one of the things I would encourage teams to do is try to get into inspection earlier. I think you mentioned that, but it's been amazing to me with FTC is kind of watching where if a team gets in there early, even if they have a problem, we can figure out what the problem is. And as the inspectors, we want to get everybody through inspection and onto the playing field. They get in there early and there is a particular problem. It's amazing the resources we have to draw upon to get a team help. So if it's a newer team and either something's not working or there's a sizing problem or there's a programming problem, we can get them help real quick. And so I kind of encourage you, get in there early, because trying to solve it on your own and waiting for the last minute we can't get it, it's harder to get you help. So get in there early. We'll find you help to hopefully get you through inspection and get you out on the playing field.
Yeah, I would also add to that too. So definitely get through inspection early, because you also want to know if you're going to fail, like what that's for. And in addition to, the refs and the adults that are there to help you, check in with the other teams too. Like, one of my favorite parts of FIRST is the ethos of gracious professionalism. So every other team there wants you to get through inspection too. So I would, if you see another team that looks like they are good, like they look very carefree, that means they've probably gotten through inspection and they're happy to help you.
Yeah, and we have funny stories with, somebody couldn't fit in the sizing thing, and we tried to figure out what to do, and we put the word out, who's got a Dremel, because we need to cut something off the end. And it's amazing, all the teams step up, whether it's tools, whether it's equipment, even solutions. The sooner we know there's a challenge, the faster we can get you help.
All right, Alex or me? Oh, we've got a great question here in the comments. And Larry, I'm going to pass this to you. The question is, how does inspection work? Can you talk through that process a little bit more thoroughly?
Absolutely. Happy to help. So what'll happen is, once the inspection window opens up during the meet, each team can come forward with a robot, and generally we get a few that come, teams come quick, but you basically get in line. The best way to do it is, have your inspection check sheet prepared, where your team can go through, make sure they're ready, and then they can come to inspection with their robot. They want to come with their controllers, and then you want to come with your number, the nameplates. And if you have the inspection check sheet filled out, that's helpful. And then you'll come in and you'll meet with two of the robot inspectors, and they're there to help review whether the robot meets the requirements. We'll step you through. It's everything from what particular parts are used to build the robot, to fitting into the size window, to making sure your software is up to date, and really making sure the robot is safe to operate and perform in the matches. We go through, we'll ask the students questions about the robot. Generally they answer, and then if we do have any particular issue, we'll highlight to them, hey, there's a problem where one of you're missing a blue nameplate, or you're missing something, or there's something that's got to be corrected. We'll make sure they know what needs to be done, and then again, if they do need help, we'll look to figure out what team can help them. If they go through and everything passes, then they can go back to their pit and they're good to go. And they probably have 45 minutes or so, or an hour to work on other things. But if there is any kind of a challenge, then we figure out how to help them. Does that help answer the question, or is there other questions with that?
The one follow-up I see here. Oh, go ahead, Shari. Yeah.
I was wondering, they always ask, did you do, I don't know, the fast track or whatever they call it? And I haven't been able to find, how do we do that? How do I have my kids be able to say, yes, we've done the whatever we have to do first, so that we can fast track the inspection?
Yes. Yeah, so there's a link, and Ruth, you might know, there's a link that the students can go through, and there's like a quiz, so they can go through that, complete the quiz, and then they're approved for fast track. And what fast track does is it really brings them, puts them in the front of the line, and lets the robot inspectors know that they've already cleared it. So in that case, we'll still check to make sure it's good, but it's usually a much quicker inspection, and they go right to the front of the line. And I don't know if somebody else on the call knows the link of how the students can go through with the fast track.
All right. It took me a second to find it. So Shari, it's buried in the Tuesday Newsday, but I believe that's the link of the test. Were you looking to, Robin?
Thank you. I was searching for it. I couldn't find it. Thank you so much.
But it does bring something up, that there's a lot of things that we've talked about, terminology, things that just become what because you've been around FIRST for a while, around FTC NJ for a while. And so the Tuesday Newsday, right? That's if you're a coach and you're on the list, Vince sends this out usually on Tuesdays. Sometimes it's on Wednesdays, but it's chock full of information. If you ever want to find something, you're like, I wonder where this is, it's usually there. And so there's always a little bit of that newsletter. It's the same information. They just update it every time. So it's not like you have to go back and look at old newsletters. You can go right there for easy contact for information.
Yeah, and I was just looking, I didn't find it immediately, but I know that there is a way to sign up for that Tuesday Newsday from FTC New Jersey's website.
There is. If you go to the website and you go to the sort of like the about page, there's usually a little link there. You have to read a lot to get to it, but
so I'll just drop for the moment for anyone, that is FTC New Jersey's webpage, and it is there somewhere. If anybody's trying to get to that and can't find it, let us know and we can look a little more deeply, but I don't want to take too much time just searching for that for the moment. But it is so, and the other thing I will point out for the Tuesday Newsday that is very helpful is it has a lot of information, but Vince highlights anything that is new. It's in a blue color, so it is really easy as long as you keep up with it. Like I skim it every, when it comes in, it takes me 5 minutes, right, to skim through it, because you just really need to look at what's blue as long as you've been looking at the information. All right, so let's move into topic number 2. Either Mia or Alex, what do you have for us?
So why is scouting helpful at the league level, and even for teams that are still learning about the game and maybe who don't think they're going to make it to elims?
So I think what I'll do is, you all are thinking of, for that, I'd like to give a little overview of like what scouting is. Because so if I was I often think back to my first year doing this, I knew nothing. Like it was a really cool and amazing year, but it was also a year where I just constantly learning. So the idea behind elimination matches is essentially that teams can now pick who they want to work with, right? Who is either their robot will complement their robot the best, who maybe the other team's drive team synergy is, the best with theirs. Or sometimes if you don't realize you're going to be one of the people, who are picking a team, you may just pick whoever's next on the list, right? Whoever's the next highest ranked. So scouting helps teams make informed decisions about who they'd like to work with on the one side. And the other side is scouting helps teams that maybe's rank doesn't really reflect how good they are as a robot, be able to sell themselves or market themselves to teams that are going to pick alliance partners. The ranking system is really interesting in that you can have a team that ends up in like the 1, 2, or 3 spot not be the top or the best 1, 2, or 3 robot. And that works its way all the way down. So scouting really allows students to talk with other teams, to network with those teams, and to watch matches and see robot performance so that they can make their own determination in addition to the actual match scores. So it helps them really identify like how a specific drive team and robot are working. So Mia, after I explain that, would you mind asking the original question again? Because I didn't answer the question. I think I just gave an overview.
Yeah, I was just saying, why is scouting helpful, and even for teams who are still learning the game, and like why it would be helpful even if you aren't planning on, if you're not like lined up to be a captain.
Yeah, I'll share a little more, because this was an area that I really learned a lot about the last couple of years, because what you find, particularly at the competitions, where sometimes you have teams that have a run of good luck and they're ranked higher than probably their robot should be, and then you have other teams that just they did not get lucky partners. They had a misstep on one of their meets, and they're actually end up they don't look, on paper it doesn't look like they're a very good robot. That's where scouting comes in, because if you have good scouts in your team, they're able to identify a team and a robot that really can complement theirs and score really well, rather than just kind of picking the next one on a list. And it turns out that, that robot was lucky more than anything that day. Whereas a team that either wasn't as lucky or just had bad partners during the day really would be a better robot. So I look at, scouting kind of as two ways. One, it's important that your team does it so that if they are a captain, they can make a really informed selection. And the other part is when teams come around asking questions, make sure you're there to sell yourself a little bit, because, maybe you didn't have a good day, but boy, you sure would like to be in that competition. So you want to be chosen. Make sure your students are ready to answer questions. And when scouts come around, you kind of want to sell your team because you want to go as far as you can on the given day.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. I noticed the same thing at the last couple of competitions as I was trying to understand the scouting process myself a little bit. And I saw a couple opportunities, where somebody, I guess, really wasn't thinking about, hey, this team might have a disadvantage in this one area. However, they might help you out here. So I think it's really important to kind of look at it from both perspectives. Like you're saying, like both think about how you can sell yourself to other teams who might be scouting, but also looking for those underdogs or other hidden opportunities, amongst the other teams. And also, as a little side note, just scouting in general is a fantastic practice to just, walk up to people and just start talking. I mean, it's not easy to do that. So to be able to sell yourself and kind of pitch an idea or whatever to a complete stranger is challenging, but it has immense benefits, down the road for sure.
Yeah, and I would chime in. I think you hit it right on the nose there, Chris, because it's also a great way to get some of your team members that maybe aren't on your drive team. You can get everybody involved, so that way everybody has a role and everybody contributes during the day of the event. And scouting's in a very important role.
No, for sure, because I will say that there sometimes you'll see a couple people that are just sitting there on the phone doing something, not really kind of bored. But there's a lot to do. There's so many teams. There's so many people that you can talk to there, and everybody should absolutely be, taking that opportunity to look at every other team, hang around them for a while. Maybe don't just come by and ask one or two questions, but maybe just watch them practice for a little bit, or go out and watch, a couple of their competitions and see how they're doing, and then try to formulate an idea around that maybe.
All right, we have a question in the chat, and I think this sort of goes into the next topic here. So this is really well timed. So the student says, we were unable to attend our meets. How would that affect our ranking at the league tournament? So I can go over this, or does somebody else want to? All right, so I'm going to sort of run through the basics of how ranking works. So going into the league tournament, you bring with you essentially your record from your 10 best matches that you had up to that point. So if you won 5 of those matches and you lost 5 of those matches, you're bringing those 5 wins with you. If you weren't able to play previously, and I do want to assure you, you will not be the only team that wasn't able to do that. We actually, I think, have another coach on the call, Kevin. His team hasn't been, they just got their kit. So it will also be their first one. So what it means is you will look like you were lower in the ranks than your performance probably actually is. Because let's say another team could have 10 wins from before the league tournament, and then that's added to the 5 wins that they have. So they have the possibility of winning 15 matches. You won't have those first 10 as an option, but you have the option to win up to 5. So this is where I think having your scouters be able to talk and about like, this is why you're where you are in the ranks, and being able to sell like the things that you are able to do well will probably be to your advantage. There is a whole thing on how many ranking points you get for different things, but the main one, if you're new to this, has to do with winning a match. Does that help answer your question, or does anybody else want to add anything to that? All right, great. So let's move into advancement a little bit. Mia or Alex, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so this year is the ranking system is a bit different. There are some ranking points. So how do they work, or what do they determine in my league ranking?
So I'll do, and this is sort of like relates to advancement, just a quick overview of the 4 ways that you can earn ranking points, which is like the first, which is, I'm sorry, the main determination of where you are in it compared to your other teams. So the first and sort of the biggest way is that you can win your match. So if you win a match, you get 3 ranking points for that. If you tie, which ties are rare, but they can happen, each team gets 1 ranking point. And if you lose a match, then you get 0 ranking points. Okay, so a win is 3 points, a tie is 1 point, and then a loss is 0 points. This year, and this is a big change. Sorry, my dog just unplugged my battery, my phone. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, so this year there's a big change in that some things that you do in the match can also allow you to earn ranking points. So the first way that you can do that, okay, and these are each worth 1 ranking point, is it's called the movement ranking point, and that has to do with leaving the line, the launch line in auto, an amount of points, which is 16 points at this point, tied to leaving and to the amount of base points you get, like pulling back into that square at end game. So if you have 16 points tied to essentially the movement of your robot in auto and end game, you and your alliance partners, that can earn you 1 movement point, 1 ranking point. If you, the next one is pattern points. Pattern points are for how many artifacts you get into the right order, which is scored at the end of auto and the end of teleop. So if at the end of auto and at the end of teleop combined, so like you could get 4 in auto and 5 in teleop. If you have that many artifacts, so 9 total in the correct position, that can earn you a ranking point. So that's called the pattern ranking point. And the third one is for number of artifacts classified during a match. This also counts your amount classified, which just means it goes into the goal and goes through the little square at the top of the ramp. So if you have 36 artifacts through combined in auto and teleop, that can get you 1 additional one. So I think just for those are sort of in the easiest to achieve to hardest to achieve, in my opinion. So the movement is 1 point, the pattern is 1 point, and the artifact is 1 point. So hypothetically, the most, if you had an amazing match, a team could earn 6 ranking points in one match. I know it's a lot. All right, Mia or Alex, what else do you have questioning about advancement?
What is something you've learned about your own role over? Oh, wrong one. In your experience, how do you balance celebrating progress even when the team doesn't advance past league tournament?
So I get it. Oh yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Give me a little break, Ruth, from starting the question every time. I mean, I think from the perspective of realizing that a lot of new teams are building their team and building success, hopefully over multiple seasons. Some of it is just to really have fun and experience the event and to really learn a lot. I mean, we've given highlights about all the complexity that happens in a single meet or even a league meet, a league tournament. There's so much learning that can happen and growth that can happen. And Larry talked about this, the opportunity to talk with other teams with scouting. Ruth talked about the opportunity to just connect with other teams that are more experienced. So there's lots of ways to take advantage of being at that league tournament, even if advancement isn't part of that. And just to clarify what advancement is, because we've had this slide up here, but we haven't really talked about what advancement is. Advancement is there will be a certain number of teams from every league tournament, and there are 8 league tournaments. There will be 6 teams from each league tournament that go to states. And that's the largest competition in New Jersey. And then there's a certain number of teams from states that would qualify to go to championship, world championship. And so advancement this year is very, very different in that it takes into account more than just who wins elims and that being a way to advance, but it really, and prior advancement is you either win an award and certain awards, or you're like the top team that wins the whole competition. And those are the ways to advance. Those teams are likely the ones who will advance, but the way that it happens is very different this year. And it's really meant to balance and give the teams that are the most well-rounded the greatest opportunity to advance. And that includes doing well in awards and doing well in the robot. I want to tell like a little personal story. So you think that if you have a new team or you have rookies or young students, that they're probably not going to win an award. And I just want to tell you about a team that we have mentored, Flameforge, who had been a team for 2 months last year. And they won, I think, second place Think Award at our league tournament. They were shocked. And it really was because they figured out a way to tell their story, even though they didn't have a really great robot on the field. They didn't do a whole lot of outreach, but they told a really good story about how they became a team, came together and developed skills. And that was rewarded. And that was an amazing way. So don't think that just because your team is new and learning, that there isn't an opportunity for you to be recognized. So that's my little pitch for making the most of those experiences.
I'll chime in. One of the things I think we've done that's important is, not every team is going to advance. There's going to be tough meets. And I think what we've always tried to do is we try to do a debriefing with each of the teams after our events. And we always kind of lead out with, what went well today. And what I have found is rather than focusing on, we came in so-and-so place or we lost, to these matches, we start out with what went well today. Well, the robot worked really well. Even though we had adversity, we bonded together as a team to get the robot working. Our drive team communicated really well. We got a lot more artifacts in than we ever thought we could. Because then you start focusing on the positive, the learning, the growth, and then everybody starts feeling good about themselves. And I find, I watch some of the students even compliment each other about, well, when that broke, it was amazing how 2 or 3 of the kids jumped in and got it working. So it was a working robot for the next match, even though that, they had the one bad, but then they all, worked together. I think it's really important that we spend time highlighting that stuff because that's what's really important. It's not, at the end of the day, it's not who the top robot is. Yeah, everybody wants to be the top robot, but it's more about how the team come together. How did the students learn? How they learn from each other? What went well for the day? And I think it's important that we also spend time highlighting that because it's more than just the advancement itself.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I have a small anecdote from 9848's first year. So again, I knew nothing. I had 15 students, like the team was full. There used to be a limit to the number of students you could have. And we drove all the way up. This was way back when FTC New Jersey let you attend meets wherever you wanted to in the state. So we were up, I think, at Columbia High School, and it was this huge meet. There were 36 teams there at a meet. Like, things have changed. And so we somehow made it through inspection. We didn't have robot signs for the side of our robot when we got there, which they weren't robot signs at that point. You had to have like flags, like it was a whole different system, but essentially robot signs. And so we get through inspection, but the robot is not moving. Like, I don't know how we made it through inspection, but like, it's not moving. The kids missed out of their 5 matches for the day. The team missed their first 2. We didn't even know to send a representative to the field, you know, which, just as for anyone new, if your robot is broken and can't go on the field, send a member of your drive team to stand and with your alliance when they're competing. That means that you get credit for being on that alliance. So if they happen to win, you still get that win. And it's a good way to support your alliance partner, even if you aren't able to. But anyway, we didn't know to do that. So we're panicked, and this team, their name was like I3 or 3 Eyes or something. I don't know. They had come from another state, and they were competing here, and they came up to us, and their coach just gave me a pep talk, me and the kids, but it was mostly me. And then I gave a pep talk to the kids, but he's like, listen, if by the end of the season, you are able to have a robot that is built and running in your first year, you should consider that success. You and your kids need to celebrate that. And that meet did not go well. I think we were ranked like 35 out of 36. But what was really cool about that day is on the bus ride home, the kids were not disengaged. They weren't really upset. They were inspired, which I think is like what all of FIRST is about here, right? So they went back and they worked their butts off and figured out what they needed to do to do better. All right, Mia and Alex, what do you have for us on topic 4, the coach's role?
As a coach, how do you balance guiding students along with allowing them to like make their own decisions and come to their own conclusions?
Ruth, you're the master.
This one.
Yeah, Tara, go take it. Yeah.
Sometimes we try and express, like, in my opinion, like, people of my age with my eyes might have trouble reading what you're presenting in this 8-point font in white on a yellow background. Like, just like, it's not you, it's me, I'm old, like, but the ball's in your court. We don't give you a rule. We don't tell people you have to change this. Just like, I think it would be in your best interest. Sometimes we, you know, just like in life people do with each other. I think it would be better if you do it this way, or would you want to consider that someone else might see this way, especially like if you're presenting and we don't know the jargon, you either need to explain some of the jargon or take some of the jargon out when you're presenting to people that are not all engineers. But it is a fine line because we need to leave the ball in your court. You're the students, it's your projects, it's your pride and joy. And we're just trying to guide you and lead you there, but not force you. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'll add to that as well. I will say that it is a little tricky because you obviously want them to discover and find the solutions to a problem, say. But it's funny because kids will either be, you know, very micro-focused or very macro-focused. So you have to kind of pick those things. You know, so say if they're having a problem with something, it's, you know, step back, take a look at, maybe it's some minor detail, you know, but if you get too hung up on something, it might not really matter that much. You know, also, like, I find trial and error is pretty important. And sometimes, you know, I'll see a team maybe try something and then they just try it once and they're like, oh, well, then they go back to taking something apart or redesigning something. It's like, well, hold on, let's try that a few more times because it might not be what you think it is. So I think it's kind of thinking, you get to kind of put head a little bit in the, how a kid would think, and think about, well, slow down and let's analyze it a little bit more, talk about it a little more before we, undo something that might, not be necessary. So I think it's just those guardrails, right? Just to kind of provide those guardrails so that they, find multiple paths to solving something.
This is an area I've been learning from my head coach and co-coaches, but it was a little bit challenging for me initially to figure out when to direct versus how to encourage. And what I've been trying to do is ask questions more and help them get to their solution rather than, point out what I think is incorrect or wrong. And I think that, at least I feel like that's working better for me, is asking questions, or as Chris said, show me 3 times that it's going to work. And then when it doesn't work, they realize and solve it, rather than me saying, I didn't think it was a good idea, by asking questions or asking them to demonstrate. I think it helps with that. But it certainly is a fine line. I think we're always learning how to do it better.
And the funny thing is, I'll say real quick to that, is that sometimes we think we know, and then we're like, oh, I know exactly how this needs to be solved. And, they figure out another way to do it, or a better way. And I'm like, I didn't think of that. And clearly it worked. So, it is tricky to kind of think of, the fine line between, do you step in or do you step away? And I think just observing and staying to the side a little bit is always the safest bet. And just kind of suggesting something, when you see it as inappropriate.
And it has been humbling. A couple of times I recommended something and it didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly.
There was one more question that was dropped in the chat here. I will say that one of the things that I feel is really special about FTC, like sometimes we're compared to FRC, which is the larger robots, which are still high school level, but larger, more expensive robots. What I really like is it's very clearly in FTC, this is a students teams robot. Whereas with FRC, it's more of a collaboration, right, between the mentors are allowed to be physically involved in the build and the programming. So I think that distinction for me helps me to remember, even though sometimes I want to, I feel like I have an idea that would be helpful, or I see a path that I've seen maybe students go down before, and I'm worried that it may not end up as well as they're hoping it does. I think the thing that I try to keep in mind and remember is my job is to help them coordinate and collaborate so that they're making the decision together. So it's not my decision. And I really try to give my teams the autonomy that whatever their path that they've decided as a group is the path that they want to go down. That I just want to make sure that everybody's on board, that they've thought it through, that they've done their due diligence. And then to help bring them the support to do it, especially when they don't know how to, we want to do this thing, but we don't know how to do it, to try to help find those resources. Let me get over to the chat. So from the chat, we have a question. What can a team do if our coach cannot come with us to the tournament? We have 2 adults who are not technically involved with us through FIRST, coming with us, but are really just there as chaperones. All right, I'll put this to the floor.
I would say to make sure that they get put on as mentors, mentors on the FIRST site, so that they can be accepted as adults at the event.
Yeah, so that is absolutely a great first step. So for you to be able to compete, they have to appear on the FIRST dashboard as adults that are listed there.
Another thing
I think I've told you this before. I sort of want to just be your adoptive coach. I will see if there's any way I can come to that competition. You see it's on February 8th. So if you can have an adult who has some familiarity with what's going on, I think that would be helpful. If not, I would encourage you to see if they'd be willing to meet with myself or someone on our team ahead of the competition so we can help them be prepared. And I think I cut you off, Larry. I'm sorry about that.
No, I was just going to share that don't be afraid to ask for help at the event, because like I have seen, whether it's other teams, coaches, or volunteers at an event, if you're having a technical problem and the two chaperones with you maybe don't have the expertise, don't be afraid to ask other teams or other leaders that are there, because I have found other coaches always very willing to help out, particularly a newer team. So if you need help at the event, don't be afraid to ask for help, because there's a lot of teams that'd be more than happy, and other coaches that they all want you to be successful there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It might be worth taking a look even at, and I'll take a look at it, the list of teams that are assigned to your league tournament, and let's take a look and see if we might be able to connect you with them. So we've got like maybe a plan in place, I think would be helpful. All right, we have, I think, 3 more topics. Alex and Mia, what do you have under topic number 5 for us?
So what are some effective ways that teams can fundraise as well as like build community awareness? Because I know like it's hard to get money, especially if you're, starting out. What are some ways that you think you can do that?
I can take a stab to start. I think a lot of teams really get started by their own connections. So you probably have your best success with people that you know already in terms of any kind of fundraising or marketing kinds of things. So some of the things that are on the slide here, I know some of our teams have done. Certainly there's a lot of companies that do dine and donate where you might be able to make a couple $100 doing that. But also leverage that in a marketing way. Offer to bring your robot to the event and see if you can pass out materials, or you can, if the location is an appropriate location, have an opportunity to do a demonstration. It doesn't always have to be at a place where there's food. It could be other kinds of things. Maybe it's a fair or a community event. And if you ask, one thing that adults in my life taught me, that if you don't ask, you can't get yes. You can't get a yes. If you don't ask, it will always be no. But if you ask, sometimes you get yes. And it's sometimes hard to turn away really dedicated middle school and high school students who are saying, help me. And so your local businesses, maybe the local community fair, asking to say, could I just please have a free booth at the fair? And we count that as, whatever the cost of that is, we count that as in-kind donations, because you're actually getting something of value. And that is, it's not real dollars to spend on a robot, but it is allowing you to spread the awareness of FIRST and awareness of your team and your robot and the thing that you're trying to do. One of the things that we encourage our students to do is, if you're at any of these events, always make sure that you're gathering information from people who might be interested. Sometimes cold calls do turn into something, cold call or cold email. You probably have to talk to 20 or 50 before you might get one. And that's really hard for high schoolers to think about. Things like social media and a website are maybe things to aspire to for a new team. Sometimes difficult to think about doing that right away, but FIRST is really encouraging folks to think about their own sustainability, and you can think about, well, what can we do this year? What can we build on that for the next year and the year after? So don't feel like you have to do everything all at once. And I think there are also some small grants that are often available. I know, Ruth, you know a little bit more about some of the small grants that help new teams get up and running.
Yeah, so for rookie teams, and sometimes it will apply for veteran teams, very early in the season, there's some money set aside for first for grants for teams that are in need. So you have to be able to demonstrate what the need is. And that usually goes through Pat and Vince, like through your program delivery partner. The other thing that I would suggest is see if again, I want to second what Robin said about people that you know, like using your connections and your family's connections, like you use that network. But if you have someone that you know that works at Comcast, Lockheed Martin, or Boeing, the three of those companies often have programs that if they have someone who mentors for a certain amount of time, then they will award that team a grant. And actually, Larry is maybe you could speak to that a little bit more, because we've really benefited from that from Boeing for the past couple of years.
Yeah, for Boeing employees, Lockheed's the same. I think Comcast is the same. And a lot of the larger companies have some kind of give back to community program. And in those scenarios, if the parents get involved with you, they can put in and request a grant, whether it's $500 or $1,000, whatever it is. A lot of the companies will either match you in terms of the time you put in, or provide a grant for a particular group that you support. And FTC is on almost all those lists. So if you have any family members, aunts and uncles, whatever, that are connected in any way to some of those larger companies, a lot of them will, if somebody's volunteering, they'll either match the hours in terms of a dollar commitment, or actually provide straight out grants for your local teams.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to get back really quickly to the student because I don't want to forget to tell you. So I just looked, the 2-8 competition is the Upper South competition, and we know lots of coaches who are there that I'm sure would be happy to help you. Particularly the one from Hornet Blue, like that you've been working with, that's mentoring you. I would say your first line of defense, if you need something, is go right to that coach, because his team has already been helping you. He's going to be familiar that you're a newer team. So if you need like an adult on the ground that day that's familiar with first, I think that would be a good first line of defense. All right, topic 6, team building. All right, Mia or Alex, do you have a question for us here?
Yes. How do you navigate conflicts or different commitment levels among the students on your team? And especially during this time, whereas many things can overload some students, like portfolio and tech.
This is one of my least favorite things to deal with, but I think the most important. So, I think that the most important, I guess I want to speak to when there's either a conflict, or if there's like a mismatch on the team of commitment levels, or, effort that's able to be put in or is being put in. I think that addressing it head on, and sometimes that's individually with a particular student that needs some extra support, or so we often circle up. Like I'm a big proponent, and I like us to physically get into a circle if at all possible, to sort of talk through. My team spent a lot of time talking. I'm not sure if that's the norm, but that's a way that we found success. And I know that sounds really like broad to just say communication, but I think that's kind of the key to that for us. And I want to pull in Dr. Dole, because I know you help me as we navigate these spaces sometimes. What are you thinking as far as how we can mitigate those things?
Yeah, I think part of it is starting off with a good culture of expectation and what it means to be a team, and then you're building. If you build comfort around conversation and communication when it's easy, then you have that foundation for when it's hard and when you have to have a conversation that's harder, like that, there's a conflict in the team. There is, one or two people who are not necessarily working to their greatest capacity. Often my first thought is to assume the best in the situation and not immediately go. It's sometimes easy to think about being punitive or to assume the worst in a student's motivation. And so I try to make sure that I make space for something could really be happening in this young person's life and we just don't know about it. And it's manifesting in robotics because that's the place they feel most safe. And that's a place where they can act out, or that's a place where they can be maybe let their guard down because things are not great in some other place in their life. And so one of the things that I've always appreciated about the culture that Ruth has is that it's a welcoming space. It is a place where I think students come and they can be themselves and they can find their people. And if that's all that your robotics team is, you have changed the world. I mean, I believe it. And so I think if you start with that positivity and you let the students, whether it's a group or an individual meeting, that you're here because you believe in them and you want to support them, and then you ask them to share as much as they can with you, and then you offer solutions. And what we do a lot of trying to hold students accountable to their own self, and not to blame others, but to think about, well, what is it that I could do to make this team better? What could I do to make the situation better? Because in the end, that's the only person they can change is themselves. They really can't change if another teammate is driving them crazy or there's a situation that is out of control. We've had it all. I mean, in the couple of years, we've had many of these interesting challenges, and each one, I think you go into it trying your best, and trying to be as open and as caring as you can be.
Just to piggyback on that, I think everyone does feel welcome, but to just reiterate the open and caring to them when we're speaking to them. And also, Ruth is really good at having just objective facts. Like, you've worked on something for 2 hours when you signed up for a team where your commitment for this project was supposed to be 8 hours. So keeping it objective, like, this person has gone to 17 events, you have gone to 2. Like, let me know what the problem is, why this is happening, so that they don't feel persecuted.
One of the things I'd share on our newer teams, it's really important to make sure everybody has a role and gets engaged. Because I think some of our mature teams, we struggle with making sure everybody's doing their share. But I think on our newer teams, I would encourage you to make sure everybody has a role, because there's been a few times where I've seen team members that weren't engaged, but then when I talked to them, I learned that nobody had given them anything to do, or they weren't comfortable with what was available to be done. And in some cases, it was really just a matter of, where could they help? What could be their part of the robot, or what could be their part of the portfolio, or something like they just needed to have something. And then once they had something, they would call their own and felt like they were contributing to the team. Everything just got a lot better. So I would just share, make sure that everybody, feels engaged, feels, that they are contributing, because when you feel like you're part of a team and that people value you, you just normally step up a little more.
All right, thank you. And for our final topic, building a support system, what do y'all have, Alex and Mia?
What kinds of support do you think have been the most valuable to you as a coach?
So y'all are looking at them. I think that it's the time that parents are willing to put in that has absolutely been the biggest benefit to building a network. And I want to point out, going over your introduction. So Larry's got an engineering background. And Dr. Dole has a healthcare background, and Tara has an educator background and Chris has a background in like more marketing and computer animations. And so I think my takeaway is it doesn't necessarily matter the technical, non-technical expertise. That time involved is the biggest thing that I can take away from this as being incredibly important. And I think that as people get involved, like it's like how Robin said earlier, like, you know, you got bit by the bug, then you start delving in a little bit more, similar to like how 13 years ago I knew nothing robotics related. And now I feel pretty confident in a lot of different technical areas because you learn along the way.
I would, you know, Ruth, one of the things you do a really, really good job with is communication, and it makes it very easy to help out because you're very good with, you know, what we need, what help you need. You know, even when I first got involved, you know, it was kind of, hey, we're going to this meeting, whatever, you need help with managing the snack bar, or you need help with a referee on the field, or is anybody available next Thursday to come to the club, or we need help mentoring this group. Like the communications to me makes it very easy to volunteer and contribute because then I kind of, we know what you're looking for. We know what, you know, you always brief us on, hey, here's some of the teams, some of the things that we might be able to help with. You're good at kind of seeing what we might be able to offer and then fitting us in. And then when we don't like something, you know, not to ask us twice, you know, but it's, you know, I think that, you know, I would encourage the newer teams and the other coaches on the call that, you know, by communicating well with your parents and your support, you can bring them more in. You know, as Robin would say, we got bit or we got hooked, or I don't know what the right way it is, but you also made it very easy for us to volunteer and very easy to help out. And it's been very rewarding where, you know, I feel like I'm valued. I feel like I'm helping out. I feel like I'm part of something much bigger than myself. And, you know, and even I'll give, you know, Vince and Pat credit at the FTC level. I think that they create that environment in New Jersey as well, where, you know, they always make a point to thank you and always make a point to talk about the volunteers. And I would just share for the other coaches and other teams on the call, you know, I think if you find ways to do that with you, whether your parents or whether it's people in your community, you know, and getting a more support network will really help your students and your teams. So thank you, Ruth, for what you've done and lured us all in, but it has been an absolute pleasure working with the teams.
Oh, I so appreciate that. I do want to just say, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit though, because I don't know if you remember when you and Robin last year started helping, I feel like you had to pry out of me, like, what can I do today? And you all were really good about that. Like, I feel like you've trained me at this point that it's a support network that I can count on, because I'm definitely a very like, we're going to work hard. We're going to do it. And I think that I really appreciate, that's something that you two have taught me over the past couple of years, is letting go of some things and being able to delegate better, because that was not in my skill set previously, I don't think.
We let you work on the bigger things. I'll help with the drill press.
Yes, I tagged you in yesterday. That was perfect. A year ago, I wouldn't have done that. Or 2 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. Were there any other questions from anybody else in the call? I know that there were some being dropped in the chat along the way, and we very much appreciate them.
What is your advice for coaches who feel isolated in their first season?
So for me, what I would say is the more you can network and talk to other people who are doing similar things to you, I think the better that's going to be. I think in my first year, I didn't talk to a lot of coaches outside of competitions, but at competitions, that was sort of like my first little networking place. I do believe also FTC New Jersey runs a coaches caucus, which is sort of like a monthly meeting of coaches. And that's another really good place to sort of get involved with coaches who can help you.
there's also so FTC NJ runs the Captain's Caucus too for students, a great way for them to get connected and learn information. And then the larger FTC organization has monthly calls for different roles that people may have. And so they have calls for head reps, they have calls for judges, they have calls for coaches. So they have calls for delivery partners. So if you don't know how to find that, most of that is available on the First Inspires website. But I know that there's if anybody's looking for it, there is like this 1-pager PDF that has all of the different calls that happen. And if you miss it, you can go and listen to the prior calls. That you can't search for it on YouTube because it's unlisted or you can't really search for it. But if you get this PDF, and I'm sure if you email Ruth, we can get it to you if you're looking for it. But all the prior calls, monthly calls they have that you can listen to, and listen to all the questions that people ask, and find some community there.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. All right. Well, I appreciate you all sticking with us for a little over an hour. So we're going to wrap up there. But so for my coaches on the call, if you have any other questions that weren't addressed, definitely please reach out. We are more than happy to help. It's one of the things we're all very passionate about. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned, and I think I've talked to everybody on the call about this, but we are at Clearview hosting a mock league tournament. So this is going to be sort of a full run through, including, inspection, judging presentations, qualification matches, elimination matches. So that's a great day to come and sort of make sure you and your students understand the whole process. So that's on February 7th. It's not too late to sign up. If you let me know tonight or tomorrow, we can certainly add you to that list. And then we're also doing one more final Gear Up New Jersey event. It's called Mentor Mayhem. Again, it is down at Clearview. It's on a Thursday night, but it's going to be more of a work day where we're going to have tables set up for teams to work, and our teams are inviting their mentors, as well as we'd encourage all the participating teams to invite their mentors. And then it's sort of almost like a speed dating scenario where we're going to have the mentors go around and spend, 5 or 10 minutes at each team's table, have the kids get to explain their robot to the mentors. Mentors can talk to the students and give them suggestions. Great thing to put in your portfolio, but also another great way to build your team's network of people who can help them. All right. So with that, thank you all so much for attending. Good luck in your next couple of weeks, and good luck at leagues. All right. Thank you, everybody.